Hello. Last week or in the last Koki, we talked about adding a spinner to your web service calls. And this week, or this time, we're going to have a look on how we can improve the user input. First, I did a little improvement of the JavaScript we left with. So I added functionality to clear all the fields when you do a new valid search. So this is just so if you change between users or persons, you don't get you get the fields emptied in between. Because just say that you find one user who has a street address and then you search for another user who doesn't have a street address, then the first person's street address would be left in that text field. So that's not very robust. So I just added these 4 rows, which uses the clear method of the Zervicepoint JavaScript API. Okay, so now we're going to talk about regular expressions. In case you haven't heard of it, it's a pattern language which you can use to validate input or retrieve parts of strings, for instance. But in Zervicepoint and in the forms of Zervicepoint, we use it to validate input. So how do we do that? Well, click on Edit on the text field, and then you have validation here. And we have some predefined validation patterns here, like email can be very useful, alphanumeric to ensure that you have no special characters in the text field. We are going to go with custom. And then we are presented with 2 options here. We have a regular expression input box, and then we have a validation message input box. So how do you write a regular expression? I recommend going to some kind of RegEx help site. I'm using RegEx 101, and here I get some help. Typically, you can Google the type of RegEx pattern you want and what you want to validate, like your RegEx social security number Sweden, which I've done, and you can get some help or some finished robust RegEx patterns. But if you want to write a little entry-level RegEx, we can start. So if you want to indicate the start of the string, you write the little roof, and if you want to specify the end of the string, it's a $sign. So let's say we just want lowercase characters in our string. And I put hard parentheses, and I put A through Z. And then I can test my pattern in this box. So if I write A, it will be highlighted in blue, and on the right I can see that we have a full match. If I write a number like 2, it's not matching our pattern. So this would signify that or indicate that this is not doesn't live up to the pattern. So even if I write my name, it doesn't live up to the pattern because this is only 1 character. If we want to add a little bit more, so we can say that it must be at least 3 long, up to 10. So all of the sudden this is okay. So this is just a little basic example. If I write with a capital E, it will not work either, because we need to add that range as well, and we do that like that. Okay, so I have already Googled some good patterns here to use. For instance, this one. And what it says is basically it must be a number, and we must have a number between 7 and 8 times, followed by a dash, and after that we have we may or may not have this dash, and after that we have another number which must be 4 characters long. So my number is okay now. But so you should be careful when you Google or use other regex patterns, because you need to make sure they are robust. So in this example, it's the first set here is to allow between 6 and 8 numbers. So if I remove the first digit here, it's still okay, but this isn't going to work with our web service, because this isn't a valid social security number. So I found another one, which I quite like. Here we validate that the first 2 digits are either 19 or 20, because apparently there aren't any living person left in Sweden that are born in the 18th century, or the 1800s, I should say. Okay, so just copy this, implement it in the service. We just copy it in there, and I prepared an error message which says incorrectly entered personal number. Format should be YYMMDD. So I think it's a good practice to always have an expected input in these kinds of validations. Well, go ahead and put this as required as well. Close it down, publish. Let's test it. I'm refreshing, and yeah. So now we get a little asterisk here showing that it's required as well. So it's not valid yet. Forgot my own personal number for a little bit. And all of a sudden it's okay. So the neat thing is that this will actually block the service from or the order from being placed. So again, we can verify that the data entered is correct, and we can really crisp the data or force the user to enter correct data using regular expressions. So thanks for this time.